Elias Vargas stood on the weathered dock, the chill of the Adriatic breeze tugging at the collar of his dark overcoat. Around him, the city was awakening to the crescendo of the masquerade festival, a spectacle of color, sound, and shadow playing out beneath a pale, cloud-streaked sky. He adjusted the simple black mask concealing his features, its matte finish dull against the glimmering sea of ornate Venetian disguises. Faces adorned with gilded filigree, feathered plumes, and jewel-encrusted visages drifted past him, laughter and snippets of foreign tongues swirling in the air like smoke. Yet beneath the revelry lurked an undercurrent of menace and intangible tension Elias felt deep in his bones. The assignment had landed on his desk only hours earlier, transmitted through secure channels with little fanfare. A killer was on the loose, one who did not merely hide behind a mask but wore a different face each night. 13 nights of the festival, 13 faces, 13 murders. The rules were as cryptic as they were deadly. Each midnight, the killer shed an identity like a second skin, vanishing into the crowd with chilling ease. And Elias's task was clear: unmask the phantom before the cycle ended. He moved through the bustling streets, his gaze sharp, cataloging faces, noting patterns in the chaos. The city's veins pulsed with life and secrets. Vendors hawked spiced wine and sugared pastries. Musicians played haunting melodies on violins and accordions. The scent of roasted chestnuts mingled with the salt and decay of the canals. Yet every smile was a mask hiding unknown intent. At a grand palazzo on the edge of the piazza, Elias found himself ushered into a dimly lit chamber. Rich tapestries muffled footsteps. Candles flickered, casting long shadows that danced like specters on the walls. Across from him, a figure draped in black spoke with quiet urgency. "The masquerade is no mere festival," the voice intoned. "It is a crucible of identities where truth dissolves into illusion." The killer exploits this fluidity, slipping through the cracks of perception. Elias absorbed the briefing with a practiced calm, his mind racing beneath a veneer of stoicism. The rules were strict: no direct assaults, no public disturbances. The investigation had to unfold within the delicate balance of the festival. The killer thrived on anonymity, and every mask was a potential threat. As the session ended, Elias was introduced to two key figures. First, Livia Cantia, a striking woman with dark, cascading hair and eyes that gleamed with intelligence and something unreadable. Her mask was a marvel of black lace and onyx beads, framing her face like a dark jewel. "Venice is my home," she said softly, "and this masquerade is both a blessing and a curse. I will help you navigate its shadows, but be warned, loyalty here is as shifting as the tides." Then came Marco Bellini, a rugged man with a stubbled jaw and weathered features born of years walking Venice's less glamorous streets. His plain clothes and skeptical glare set him apart from the lavishly masked attendees. "I don't trust outsiders," he muttered, "but this killer is bad for the city. We'll have to work together for now." The uneasy alliance was sealed with a nod. Later, as dusk bled into night, Elias stepped onto the balcony overlooking the piazza. The festival was in full swing. Lanterns swung gently in the breeze, casting golden pools of light over the throng below. Music swelled, a raucous mix of laughter and whispered conversations. Masks gleamed, some grotesque, some elegant, all enigmatic. He scanned the crowd, studying how people moved, how eyes darted beneath their disguises. The killer was here, somewhere among them, watching, waiting to strike again. The thought tightened his chest. A sudden ripple passed through the crowd as a figure in a raven-feathered mask brushed past him. Elias caught the woman's intense gaze, Livia's, and felt a shiver of both reassurance and doubt. In this city of shadows, he knew the only certainty was uncertainty. The first midnight approached, and with it, the first unmasking. The game had begun. Elias inhaled deeply, steeling himself. In Venice, where every identity was a lie, survival depended on seeing through the masks before the killer chose his next face. And the clock was already ticking. The early morning haze clung stubbornly to the narrow alleys, blending with the stale smoke of torches flickering along the canal walls. It was here, amid the labyrinthine veins of Venice, that the first murder had been discovered, a grim harbinger of the nightmare to come. The scene was still cordoned off by a tattered velvet ribbon, swaying faintly in the breeze like a delicate noose. Elias crouched beside the body, the victim sprawled awkwardly, his mask a delicate porcelain visage painted with intricate gold leaf-lying face down in a pool of darkening blood. The stillness of the city, usually alive with the lively chatter of festival-goers, was broken only by the distant splash of oars and the soft murmurs of onlookers. Elias's piercing gray eyes scanned the surroundings with methodical precision. The victim's clothing was finely tailored, suggesting a man of some standing, but the mask was the true mystery. It was one of 13, Elias recalled, each tied to a night in the masquerade festival and now, chillingly, to a series of murders. The killer, it seemed, wore a different face every night, disappearing into the throng as easily as mist over the canals. He rose slowly, brushing dust from his dark coat, and pulled his own mask tighter against the chill. The silence was broken by the soft footsteps of Marco Bellini, the local detective who had been assigned to assist him. Marco's rugged face was set in a scowl, his eyes tired but alert. "A fine mess," Marco muttered, gesturing toward the body. "No witnesses, no clear motive. Just a mask and a dead man." Elias nodded, his mind racing through possible leads. "The mask is deliberate. It's a signature. The killer wants us to know that each death is connected, but the identity remains elusive." Marco's gaze hardened. "And every night, a new face. How do you catch a ghost?" Before Elias could answer, a voice drifted from the shadows of a nearby tavern. Sophia Marini emerged, her sharp eyes glinting beneath her own mask, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "You'll find more answers over a drink than on these cursed stones," she said softly, beckoning them inside. The tavern was a stark contrast to the cold, empty streets. Warm light spilled from stained glass, casting kaleidoscopic colors across the worn wooden tables. The hum of whispered conversations and the clink of glasses created a bubble of uneasy camaraderie. Sophia moved deftly behind the bar, leaning toward Elias as she spoke. "Masks hide more than faces here," she murmured. "Rumors twist and turn like the canals. I've heard whispers, names that come and go like shadows. But trust is scarce, everyone has something to hide." Elias absorbed her words, the weight of the masquerade pressing down on him. The killer's ability to assume new identities was not just a tactic but a weapon, fracturing reality and shattering trust. Every smile could conceal a blade, every glance a lie. Later that night, Elias and Marco stood by the edge of a narrow canal, the water reflecting the flickering gas lamps like liquid gold. Their breath formed clouds in the cold air as they exchanged terse observations. "You're not used to this, are you?" Marco said quietly. "The city, the masks, the lies." "No," Elias admitted. "But I've seen enough ghosts to know they leave trails. We just have to find the right one." The investigation advanced as Elias pored over photographs, victim profiles, and the scattered masks recovered from the scenes. Each mask was a puzzle piece, hinting at a pattern that was maddeningly incomplete. The ticking of a distant clock echoed through the quiet room, a relentless reminder of the 30 nights to come. Working late into the night, Elias's thoughts churned. The killer's pattern was emerging, a new mask each evening, each death a calculated stroke in a deadly game. Yet the faces behind those masks remained shadows, impossible to pin down. His gaze lingered on a photograph of the first victim, the porcelain mask beside him like a silent accusation. The question gnawed at him. How do you catch a killer who is no one and everyone at once? As dawn threatened the horizon, Elias leaned back, exhaustion tugging at his limbs. Outside, Venice stirred, the masquerade's music swelling once more. Somewhere in the crowd, the killer was already wearing a new face, ready to vanish into the night. And Elias had to find him before the next mask claimed another life. The night was far from over. The establishment was a stark contrast to the glittering opulence of the masquerade above. Here, shadows clung to the corners, and the air was thick with the scent of aged oak and spiced wine. The soft glow of candlelight flickered across Sophia's face as she leaned toward him, her sharp green eyes scanning the room before settling on his. "You're looking for truths in a sea of masks," Sophia murmured, her voice barely more than a breath. "But be careful, agent. Here, truth is just another disguise." Elias nodded, settling onto a stool at the bar. Around them, figures cloaked in elaborate costumes whispered secrets and lies, their faces obscured by delicate Venetian masks. He knew the danger. Every whispered rumor could be a trap, every glance a threat. "Tell me what you've heard," Elias urged, his voice low. Sophia dipped her head, her lips curving into a faint, knowing smile. "There's talk of a ghost someone who wears a different face each night. They say he moves like smoke through the crowds, impossible to catch, but the whispers. They're fragmented, conflicting. Some say the killer's among the nobility. Others swear it's someone from the streets." The contradictions gnawed at Elias. The masquerade's fluid identities were his greatest obstacle. How could he pin down a killer who was not just hidden behind a mask, but changing masks nightly? Later, stepping out of the bar, Elias was swallowed by the Venetian night. The narrow alleyways twisted like veins through the city, moonlight casting long shadows that danced with the rippling water. Masked figures passed silently. Their faces were blank canvases, impossible to read. The soft lapping of the canal water was the only sound accompanying Elias's footsteps, a haunting counterpoint to the turmoil inside his mind. He paused, watching as a figure slipped behind a corner, vanishing as if into thin air. His breath caught. The killer was here, somewhere among these shadows, a phantom weaving through the city's heart. The next evening, at a private gathering hosted by Venetian nobility, Elias found himself face to face with Livia Conti. Her presence was magnetic dark hair cascading over an intricately decorated mask, eyes shimmering with intelligence and something more elusive. "Information is currency here," Livia said softly, swirling wine in her glass. "But every coin has two sides, Elias. You must decide which side you are willing to pay." Her ambiguous loyalty unsettled him. Was she a genuine ally or another player in the masquerade's dangerous game? Elias met her gaze steadily, aware that every word exchanged might be a piece of a larger puzzle or a carefully laid snare. Back in his rented room overlooking the canal, Elias sat by the window, the city's lights twinkling like distant stars. The ticking of an old clock filled the silence, each second a reminder of the time slipping away. His reflection blurred in the glass, merging with the masked revelers outside. He felt the fragmentation of his own identity, the lines between hunter and hunted, friend and foe, reality and illusion dissolving beneath the weight of the masquerade. The night pressed on, and with every passing hour, Elias's sense of paranoia deepened. He was a man caught beneath layers of masks, his own included, struggling to find a single truth in a world built on deception. The killer was out there, slipping through the cracks of shifting identities, and Elias knew that with every mask that fell at midnight, the danger grew sharper, the stakes higher. But who could he trust? And how long before the masks concealed the killer forever? As the clock chimed midnight, Elias felt the cold grip of isolation tighten. The game had only just begun, and beneath the mask, the shadows were already closing in. Inside a modest room perched above the narrow cale, Elias Vargas sat hunched over a battered wooden desk, the faint scratch of his pen against paper the only sound breaking the stillness. The masquerade outside throbbed with music and laughter, but here, in this small sanctuary, the festive veneer dissolved into shadows and memories. He paused, eyes darkening as they settled on a photograph pinned to the wall, a faded black and white image of a man with a tight-lipped smile, standing shoulder to shoulder with Elias in a long-forgotten mission. The man was his colleague, his friend, lost in the chaos of an operation that had gone catastrophically wrong. The weight of that loss pressed down on Elias with relentless force, a silent companion in his solitary vigil. The mission in Venice was unlike any other, a killer who wore a different face each night, blending seamlessly into the swirling anonymity of the masquerade. Yet, as Elias contemplated the task ahead, the past surged forward with unyielding clarity. He knew that the shadows he chased in the present were intertwined with those haunting memories. His secure phone vibrated sharply against the desk, jolting him from his reverie. The screen glowed with an encrypted message, its contents brief but loaded. "The 13th mask knows you. Past and present entwined, watch the shadows you cast." A cold shiver crawled down Elias's spine. He read the message again, the cryptic words reverberating through the silence like a death knell. The killer was no mere stranger. This was a game played on a personal level, with stakes far beyond the immediate murders. The room seemed to close in around him as memories flooded backflashing images of that fateful night. The screech of tires on wet pavement, the frantic crackle of radio static, and the sudden, horrifying absence when his colleague vanished into the darkness. The operation had been a disaster, a failure that Elias had buried deep beneath layers of professional detachment and restless nights. But now the past was clawing its way to the surface, refusing to remain hidden. Every mask the killer wore was a reminder of the faces Elias had failed to save, the truths he had never fully confronted. Determined to seek clarity, Elias reached for his phone again, calling Alessandro Fiore, his former colleague and trusted confidant. Though miles away, Alessandra's steady voice offered a tether to reason amidst the turmoil. "Elias," she answered, her tone cautious yet supportive, "I got your message." "What did you find?" He hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "The killer's connected to that night. To my past, it's not just a case of masks and murder anymore, it's personal." There was a pause on the other end, then a sigh. "I feared as much. We need to dig deeper. There's more beneath the surface of this masquerade than anyone realizes." The conversation was brief, but it ignited a spark within Elias. He knew that despite the emotional barricades he had erected, he could not face this alone. Yet trust came at a cost, and his guarded nature wrestled with the necessity of alliance. Later, walking through the silent streets as dawn threatened the horizon, Elias's thoughts churned. The city around him was a maze of secrets, and each turn seemed to echo the fragmented pieces of his own identity. He wondered how many masks he himself wore, and whether unmasking the killer would also mean confronting the shadows within. As the first light of day softened the edges of Venice, Elias steeled himself for the nights ahead. The ticking clock of 13 masks was relentless, and the killer's game was growing deadlier by the hour. But it was not only a battle against an elusive foe, it was a fight for redemption, for truth, and for the fragile self he feared was slipping away. The masquerade was only beginning, and Elias was trapped at its heart, caught between the ghosts of his past and the deadly faces of the present. The shadows whispered secrets, and Elias knew one thing with chilling certainty: the next mask to fall would change everything. He paused at a bridge overlooking a canal, the water dark and still beneath the rising sun. Somewhere in the city, the killer moved unseen, wearing a new face, weaving lies into the fabric of Venice. Elias's breath fogged in the cool morning air as he vowed silently this time he would not fail. The game was no longer just about survival. It was about confronting the man he had become and the man he had lost. And the clock was ticking. Elias Varga stepped through the carved wooden door, the weight of his mask pressing lightly against his face. The scent of jasmine and aged oak filled the air, mingling with the faint trace of expensive perfume. His eyes, sharp beneath his dark mask, scanned the room where Venetian nobles and masked guests mingled beneath towering frescoes depicting mythic tales from centuries past. Near the marble fireplace stood Livia Conti, an embodiment of elegance and enigma. Her dark hair cascaded in waves, framing a face partially obscured by an intricate silver mask adorned with filigree and tiny sapphires that caught the low light like stars. Her eyes, vibrant and calculating, met Elias's gaze with a mixture of recognition and guarded caution. "Agent Varga," she greeted, her voice smooth but carrying an edge of tension. "I trust Venice has welcomed you with the usual charm." Elias inclined his head slightly. "The city is as beguiling as ever. But beneath the masks, the dangers are far more tangible." Livia's smile was fleeting. Indeed, the masquerade is a dance of shadows, and some steps lead to darker places than you might imagine. Their conversation was interrupted briefly as Marco Bellini entered, his rugged frame framed by the doorway. His presence was understated yet commanding, a silent reminder of the gritty reality tethering Elias's world to the polished veneer of Venetian high society. Together, the trio navigated the labyrinthine halls to a more private chamber, where the flickering candlelight softened the sharp edges of their alliance. Livia's role was as much a mystery as the masks all around them. She was a scion of one of Venice's oldest noble families, her loyalties tangled in webs that threatened to ensnare even the most cautious. There are forces at play here, Livia confided, lowering her voice as she produced a folded note. Powerful families, secret societies. They manipulate the masquerade not just for tradition, but to steer the city's fate. Elias unfolded the note, his eyes darting across cryptic names and locations. The mention of the Order of the Black Veil sent a chill down his spine. A clandestine group rumored to orchestrate events from the shadows. Why trust me with this? Elias asked, suspicion threading his tone. Livia's gaze hardened. Because if the killer is linked to these circles, you'll need more than just your instincts. And because my family's survival depends on the truth, even if it means breaking old alliances. Marco's brow furrowed, skepticism etched across his face. Yet, his reluctant nod indicated a willingness to cooperate, aware that the stakes demanded uneasy partnerships. As the night deepened, Elias found himself drawn into a vortex of political intrigue and personal conflict. Livia's intelligence was invaluable, but every revelation was shadowed by questions of motive and trust. The masquerade, once a festival of beauty and mystery, now felt like a trap tightening around them all. In a secluded corner, Elias pressed Livia further. How far are you willing to go for your family? Her fingers trembled slightly as they wrapped around a delicate wine glass. Further than you might expect, she whispered, eyes flickering with both resolve and vulnerability. Outside, the bells tolled midnight, their echoes weaving through the narrow canals like a reminder time was running out. Each mask hid secrets, and with every passing hour, the lines between friend and foe blurred ever more dangerously. Elias left the palazzo that night burdened with new knowledge and a creeping doubt. Livia's loyalty was a riddle wrapped in elegance, and the masquerade's deadly dance was only just beginning. The question lingered in his mind as he vanished into the misty Venetian streets, in a city where everyone wore a mask. Could he trust the face he was beginning to rely on? The clock was ticking, and with every tick the danger grew. Elias stood on the balcony overlooking the Grand Canal, the moon casting a silver path across the restless water. His breath was shallow, heart racing with the weight of the truths uncovered. The masquerade below was a kaleidoscope of swirling fabrics and glittering masks, each figure a potential threat or a hidden ally. He knew this night would mark a turning point. Alliances forged in shadows, secrets traded in whispers, and the fragile line between loyalty and betrayal stretched taut. The deadly game had escalated, and Elias was determined to play his part to the end. But as the masks fell and the final act approached, one question remained: who truly wore the 13th mask? And would Elias be ready when the final face was revealed? The answer, much like the city itself, lay shrouded in mystery and danger. The night deepened into silence, but for Elias Varga, the masquerade was far from over. His footsteps echoed softly, swallowed almost entirely by the distant lapping of the canal waters. The masquerade was in full swing, the city alive with music, laughter, and the pervasive hum of masked faces, each concealing more than just their identities. Elias moved with the deliberate caution of a man who had learned the bitter price of misplaced trust. Tonight, the festival's glamour felt like a mocking veil, a fragile mask barely concealing the rot beneath. His thoughts churned relentlessly, replaying the fragments of conversations, the subtle shifts in Livia County's demeanor, the unexplained gaps in her accounts. A gnawing suspicion had rooted itself deep in his mind, growing more insistent with each passing hour. He found her at last in a shadowed alley behind the Palazzo Conti, the grand family residence that stood as a symbol of Venetian nobility and secrecy. Livia's silhouette was framed by the dim glow of a flickering lantern, her elegant mask removed, revealing eyes sharp and unreadable. The tension between them was palpable, a taut wire stretched to its breaking point. "You're late," Livia said, her voice steady but laced with an edge Elias hadn't heard before. "I couldn't get confirmation earlier," Elias replied, his gaze unwavering. "You told me the leads were solid." She smiled, a slow, almost predatory curl of her lips. "I gave you what I could?" "Sometimes truth is as fluid as the waters beneath this city." The words struck Elias like a blade. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Is that all it is to you?" "A game, because if it is, I'm playing for my life." Livia's eyes flickered, a brief flash of something vulnerable before being replaced by steely resolve. You don't understand, Elias. There are forces at play here far beyond your mission. My loyalty lies with my family first, and that means survival, no matter the cost. His heart sank. The unspoken accusation hung between them, betrayal. The knowledge that the woman he'd tentatively trusted was part of the web of deception tightened his chest. Why, Elias demanded. Why undermine me? Her answer was a whisper, barely audible over the distant strains of a violin from the festivities. Because sometimes, to protect what matters, you have to sacrifice others. Elias recoiled as if struck. The masquerade's shifting identities had just claimed its first victim of trust. Later, aboard a gondola slicing silently through the ink-dark canals, Elias sat opposite Marco Bellini. The detective's rugged features were etched with concern, his gruff exterior softened by the shared burden of their unraveling case. She's not the only one playing both sides, Marco muttered, eyes scanning the water surface. This city's full of masks within masks. Elias nodded, the weight of isolation pressing down. If I can't trust her or anyone else, what's left? The truth, Marco said simply, and your own instincts. Back in the solitude of his hotel room, Elias pored over his notes, each fragment of information a shard of a broken mirror reflecting a fractured reality. The ticking clock was a cruel reminder that time was running out 30 nights to unmask a killer who wore a new face each dusk. His mind raced, haunted by memories of past betrayals and the chilling realization that the greatest danger might not come from the shadows of Venice but from the very people he'd counted on. The masquerade was no longer just a festival. It was a battlefield where trust was a liability and survival hinged on uncovering not just the killer's identity, but the truth beneath the masks they all wore. As the night deepened, Elias's resolve hardened. He would face the betrayal head-on, but the cost was clear. The price of trust in a city of lies was isolation. And in isolation, the killer could strike with impunity. The chapter closed with Elias standing at a balcony overlooking the labyrinthine city, the wind tugging at his coat as the distant church bells tolled midnight, a stark reminder that with each passing hour, the mask of deceit grew heavier and the stakes climbed ever higher. The game had changed, and Elias was now as much a target of betrayal as the killer he pursued. The question lingered in the night air: if even your closest allies can turn against you, how do you fight a ghost that wears a new face each night? And so, beneath the swirling masks and whispered secrets of Venice, Elias braced himself for the darkness to come.